You are so loved here. Welcome to the Unconditional Journey podcast, where we will be exploring different ways to awaken to our life's purpose through a journey to self-love. Awakening the divine inside of us all along the way. We will explore different spiritual modalities, practices, and techniques to find deeper understanding. Some that we have tried and new ones that we want to learn. We'll be sharing our own experiences with you and having special guests on to learn new ways to heal on our journey for the mind, body, and spirit. Come along with us as we awaken the spirit and purpose inside. Welcome back to the Unconditional Journey. I'm Debbie.
I'm Chante, and today we have the honor of talking to Nancy Mathews.
That's right. Nancy and I go way back, and geez, what has it been? 10, let's see, 10 to 15 years. Maybe.
Yeah, forever.
Nancy's come in for some massage, and I got some hypnotherapy with her early on. It was really awesome. And yeah, we're just going to talk about some hypnotherapy and helping connect to your inner child and whatever else comes up today.
Yep. So that was basically, as we were discussing earlier, it was when we first met, you were trying to kind of figure yourself out and what your path was going to be. And what we had done was start with a session that I do with pretty much anybody and everybody when I've done hypnosis, and that is called I think it's Child in the Grove or the Forest, but it's to find your inner child, and the purpose is to actually identify with the self-love that we all need in order to start to expand and bloom into whatever it is and whatever path we want to go on. Hypnosis in and of itself is trying to correct negative attitudes, thoughts, or behaviors, things that might get in your way, and take those out and help you to expand. And it can be anything, you had talked about hypnobirthing, for example. So in a birthing journey, all those things are connected to actually what's internal, and people don't know how to recognize a lot of things until you remove the blocks that are in their way of being successful. So that was actually kind of, I think when we had first met, you're going, I'm stuck. And that's kind of everybody's mantra at some point in your life. You're like,
Yeah.
Stuck. So it's to get unstuck and then figure out your path.
Yeah, it was really wild because I didn't know where I was going. And I think that was even before I started the product company, but I don't remember. And
yeah, you were thinking about it.
Yeah.
It was in there somewhere.
That was a wild detour also.
Yeah, that was. It was great. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
What led you to hypnosis?
Anxiety. It runs in my family, my children, myself. And it's just a great way to help you wherever you are, get into your head and recognize what that is and know how to get around it in order to move forward. So for me, I had two kids that were struggling when I was getting divorced, when they were in junior high and high school, your basic hell quarter of life. That everybody thinks it's just going to be this magical, wonderful TV show, and it's just not.
Yeah.
And so they and their friends all appreciated the fact that I use them as guinea pigs half the time.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. And when you do stuff like, you're not really supposed to go into regression with people unless they really want it. But when I did it, it was very humbling for me and for them to find out that they had past lives where they were connected as friends.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so it's really interesting because I made sure that one did not tell the other what had happened in their session until afterward.
That's
cool.
Yeah, so that was awesome. But it also tells you that, our energies go beyond here.
Yeah.
And so, it's just, It's pretty powerful. I enjoyed it just from watching things like that. It gave me joy. But when it comes to the birthing thing, you can't tell people how to have babies, but you can tell them these are life skills and you're going to use these breathing patterns like you were just doing um, at other times in your life. And it doesn't necessarily have to physically be a baby that you're trying to deliver. You're trying to deliver other aspects in your life. So,
That's huge. Yeah.
Birthing journey.
Wow.
Well put, Nancy.
That's cool.
thank you.
Yeah.
Take it. Well, I've done a little bit of hypnosis. I did a class in 2020, so in the middle of COVID time, so got to have that experience of what it's like to really be able to do that with any aspect of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely loved it. It was such a good way to get through such a kind of emotionally charged and triggering time, to just be breathing through it and getting to practice with all these random people from all over the world. It was,
I wish I would have thought of that.
I
I was
Yeah.
going through some anxiety then for sure.
I would have known.
No, seriously. I should have called Nancy.
Yeah. Here we are. We now know how to use Zoom. So, anytime.
Yeah. Man,
We are
Yeah.
proficient now with Zoom.
that's right. I remember doing the past life regression with you, and the scene was I was a Japanese wife,
Mm.
and it was kind of dark out, kind of the end of day, dusk, and I was in this like beautiful kimono, and I was walking out in my garden, and I was on this little path, and there was water, like our house was on the edge of a lake. It was so beautiful. There were forest trees all over. And I remember turning around to my house, and it was all like backlit with like amber lights and lots of windows. But I remember being so angry. Like, that woman was so angry, and she was like so angry at her husband. And it felt like I was at this like literal turning point in my life. Like, I had a child, and like I was unhappy in this marriage, and she was trying to figure out like what to do. But I remember like really feeling her anger, and like she was turning around, and there was like lots of other businessmen there, and she's just like really angry, but like in this beautiful scene. But yeah, I remember like being a little bit angry when I got out of that. I was like, I don't know what that
I
was.
needed to reset.
Right. Yeah.
What lesson did you draw from that, if any?
God, I don't even remember. It was just like I just felt like it. I guess that like I was also at a path point. Like, where am I going? Which way? Which way am I going? Like, am I going to go to the water? Like, who knows what she was thinking, right? Am I going to go to the water, and am I going to go back? And yeah,
Was she subservient or was she going to stand for herself?
yeah.
What
Or like
happened beyond that day?
child and run. Like, could she
Yeah.
leave? Did she feel stuck? Yeah,
And there was just one child?
and that I remember. Yeah,
Well, that's irony.
no, right. That's what I said.
So, yeah, I think a lot of things tie into present and past that, you saw the innuendo there of that was not you. That wasn't how you wanted to live your life. So,
No, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's just. Yeah, no.
And as a hypnotherapist, you're not actually allowed to contribute to the conversation either. I mean, you're telling me a decade later, so that's fine.
Right.
At the time, I have to let you just develop your own story. I
Yeah.
have to hear you out. You get to vocalize it. And if you don't want to go, and this goes for anybody in regression, if you don't want to go beyond a certain point, then we stop and we go back.
Mhm.
We don't force you to recognize things that you're not allowing yourself to do. Everything is within you and your thought patterns, your brain, what you're retaining. And from the sciences now, they're saying you actually hold on to the genetics of your previous ancestors. So a lot of times you could potentially be recognizing something that a previous member of your family had experienced. So they haven't gotten in far enough into the brain yet, but there's a lot down there.
Yeah, no
Right.
kidding.
For sure. Yeah.
I've understood it to be 7 generations back and 7 generations forward, but yeah, recently I'd heard that science tracked it down to 3 generations, at least genetically, like in your
Whoa.
DNA, because
Mhm.
when a woman is pregnant, that child has all of their eggs and everything already.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
is that kind of what you're talking about scientifically?
Like the grandma, when the grandma is pregnant with a daughter
You have the eggs of the next
at
generation.
5 months, it's
Mhm.
we have
all
all of
the
the
eggs.
wounds, all of the
the emotions.
coding.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, so that and that from the standpoint of the health of the child can also be reflected in the mental attitude of the mother at the time. If they're under stress and duress, then that child is more than likely going to end up with a little anxiety when they are born, and then it can be carried forward just from that. So, right now with for example, the fires in LA, I was just thinking this morning about the babies being born every single day. At that process, those poor people don't know if they go home to a home or not, or,
Yeah.
what kind of future and where are they going to be. So that stress is built into those babies now. So I think from future generations, they may end up studying the long-term effect of disaster on the newborn.
Right.
That's wild. I didn't
Yeah.
think of
So,
Like the day I was born, my dad worked for the government. We were in Colorado, and his ex-wife was mad because he was having a baby with somebody else.
that.
And she was threatening my life and my mom's life. But we had military police outside our door. So like I was born into that stress.
yeah.
Like,
It turned out marvelously.
hey, thanks.
Yeah,
I've
didn't
done a
you?
lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Through work. So,
I've released a lot.
yeah.
But that's how I started day one, I was writing about that, and I was like, man, that's incredible that
The
that's
perseverance.
yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, you read these stories in history about, of Trail of Tears or during World War II when they're being bombed. And even, in the trenches of some of the people that started with hypnosis, they discovered that the way people would birth under these traumatic experiences, it depended on what they had been told to expect versus what they actually did
Mhm.
experience. And so, there are experiences in World War I where they would deliver a baby in the trenches and just walk away. They're just peasants. They're just, please help me deliver this baby. They deliver the baby and they're fine. The same person who was delivering that baby was also being trained in a hospital where they were having these horrible, painful births because they
Mhm.
were told it was horrible and painful. So what you tell yourself, it again is over that mind over matter element.
Yeah.
And wording is always important. So, I still crack up when people say, I have this birth date in mind for my baby. Well, you might,
Right.
but babies have their own
They're
opinion, and
sold
it's
out.
usually a month. Unless you're IVF, there is no way you're going to know when your baby's coming.
Yep.
Because it can be 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after, whatever number they gave you, because it's called a period for something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For some unknown reason, a period in time is exactly 28 to 30 days. So when you ovulate within that period of time,
Never
you
know.
might have gotten pregnant.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
My baby
and
girl
even,
nearly 3 weeks late, and we kind of used that argument of, well, obviously it was later towards the end of the period, so I have this much more time before I have to go.
yeah, no, it's a birth month, and when ripe, they're ripe. Right now, where I live, doctors are inducing at 39 weeks because who gave them permission to do that? It used to be 38 weeks. Well, the actual birthing ripeness dates are between 40 and 42 weeks.
Yeah.
And then everybody says, oh, you're late. Well, not until you get to 41.6 days. You're getting maybe close. So, but it's what they're told. And so then they get nervous and things are going to happen. babies don't go beyond 42 weeks.
Mm.
But being told at 39 weeks you need to be induced is, to me, wrong.
I
And
agree.
Yeah.
takes away the control of the mother and the baby to do it in their
Mhm.
own way. So, yeah.
Yeah, my son was 2 weeks late. I was like, whoa. Waddling.
Yeah, but your body in time is also producing the lungs and the brain at the very end. That's the tail end of gestation. And your body is expanding, but you're waddling because your hips have opened up in your pelvis in order to make room for the baby to pass through.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
And babies that are C-section tend to have a lower immune system than those that are born naturally.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of weird things that are all
They don't come
connected.
down the canal to get all the
You have to get the
good
good
protection.
junking. Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that they're swabbing now. Like
Yeah.
vaginally vaginally swabbing the
Cool.
The C-section babies and putting
and then
it
like
in
put
your,
it all over them to get the
Wow.
mucus for protection. Yeah, that's really cool.
That's amazing.
yeah. But not everywhere. Again, it's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
have to tell them to do it in some
You gotta
places.
know. Yeah, you gotta know.
At least there's that option of being able to tell them.
Yeah. This day and age, I'm seeing more and more rights for women being removed, and you have to keep remembering that you advocate for yourself and you have to tell them what to do. It's not a medical process, it's a natural process. So, you interject what you want. You might go to a hospital, but you don't necessarily have to go to a hospital. That's when they say, "Oh, we're going to induce." Well, oh, I must have missed that on my calendar. I'll be there next week.
Right on. Yeah.
See you guys in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm busy. Sorry, got an appointment elsewhere. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I'm so sorry.
The crib's not together yet.
Yeah.
It was
Mine are theirs.
for my daughter's birth. I think there was a lot of stress going on. Like we were merging two families at that time. And yeah, she was not wanting to come out, or I didn't want her to come out until everything was perfect or something like that. But it was the wildest thing because the only way that I could really get through the contractions, because they were so intense and kind of resistant. I gave birth for 49 hours.
Who you beat me.
Hate you.
Yeah.
But it was giving
Congratulations.
myself like, thank you. I'm like,
Well, and I think that people don't realize that part of the pain comes from holding in instead of letting go.
mhm.
Sure. Yeah. Jeez. If that's
So-
not a metaphor.
Right.
Jeez.
Right.
Letting go.
Let it
I was
go.
using
So, and just relaxing and letting it go. People, especially the third portion of the birth, you're supposedly pushing, but you don't really want to push. You need to let it open up on its own. You have less tearing, and the baby actually has the ability to go down the path on its own. And yeah, the problem comes when you're saying push, you don't push.
Yeah.
Just breathe down.
That's
And
great.
then you're relaxing the muscles and opening up. And that's a process and a vision that a lot of people don't grasp unless they do
That
a
sounds
class.
amazing.
Yeah.
Right. It's totally opposite of what you're told, right?
Right.
So you're re-educating yourself through this process. So
Have you
Yeah.
assisted people in birth, or did you used to just guide them beforehand and give them the tools?
okay, so it's basically a 5-week course, and you do it for 2 hours per class, and then I let them go on their own. But I've had them call me from the birthing room and going, "It ain't happening." And so then I'll put them in. I've had to hypnotize them while they're there because their partner couldn't do it, because that's really, you're teaching the partner how to help them through the birth.
Yeah.
And while you're in hypnosis, they're continually guiding you, moving you around the room, whatever. I also have had it where the doctors were going to induce, and it was a nurse, and she called me up. She's like, I don't really want to go there. So she just called me up and said, "Can we do another session?" And then she went into labor about an hour later. So, and that's normal. I
Wow.
mean, once you're told it's okay to go,
Mhm.
you can do it. And I have a birth story where somebody was told, I think their baby was like stuck and not moving enough. And so they go through a test process, and the baby passed 4 of the 5 tests. And the doctor said, well, it didn't pass the 5th one. We're going to induce. And so they said, get ready. And she said, give me a minute. And in an hour, she was in labor, actively in labor. And the nurses couldn't believe it. And the thought of that is, again, you're in charge. They're not in charge. I don't want to have the baby now. I'll do it, my way. So it's, or you do want to have the baby, because some people are preterm and they don't want it, especially with twins and stuff. So you kind of have to work with the program. I don't go to the labor rooms now, but I can do it over the phone and do what we call magic. But yeah, yeah. So, and that's fun because you're like, oh God, anything to keep the baby away from any drugs or you having to have a surgery.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Just the gift of the natural process is wild.
Yeah.
Well, and ironically,
It was a birthing center, but
birthing center.
most of it happened at home, and then the last 20 hours was there.
the other day,
Exactly.
well, the irony is that I had to be induced twice, basically. One of them I had, well, I had 2 miscarriages. So a lot of times I related a lot to my birthing clients because I'd had 2 miscarriages, second term miscarriages before my first. Then I didn't have another pregnancy until 5 years later, and then I had a miscarriage at 8 weeks, and then I had my second child. So I related well to the processes that a lot of people go through in birthing nowadays. They don't realize that about 50% of pregnancies end up in miscarriage. And they may not even know they're pregnant because it's so early term, but the later ones are really
Dramatic.
depressing. Yeah, and traumatic. So I relate to that, but I also the first one was going to be born on my birthday, and I did not want to have to share a birthday because I had shared birthdays my entire life with other relatives. So I asked her to hold off, and literally 2.5 hours after midnight, she was born. So because and I didn't know that was actually hypnosis. I'm telling the baby, can you just hold off? I'll give you your own cake and everything, kind of thing. And
We
then
won't have to share.
yeah, I don't have to share. You get your cake, I get mine, your flavor, my flavor. And the second one was induced, and it really kind of ticked me off because I think it was too early. But they scheduled for 8 in the morning, and she came at a couple of minutes before 5. And it was like epidural from day one, it's like all the things I would not recommend. And it was hard to have that connection right afterwards because I swept her away, and I was like, wait, where's she going? I don't, and I remember that distinctly. And she is a very business-like person. I mean, she is just like type A. And I'm like, I think that might have something to do with, but it was annoying because the reason I had an induction was she was born in March. What happens in March? Spring break. My doctor was going skiing and didn't want to have to pass me on to someone else.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, that is.
So, you're putting this stuff together and you're going, I wouldn't do that again. No.
Right.
So you find your own team of support, and it could be, there's places where you are in Portland that do a fantastic job of education and classes and connectivity with other people. And there's all these multiple birth centers and things that are options to hospitals that you just don't get everywhere. You're in a really special place. So
is there a way for people to find that in their own communities if they're not in Portland? And maybe we can put some links down, or is there like a national?
yeah, it's international, actually. There's 1,500 instructors worldwide.
Wow.
And they're amazing. So you just go to hypnobirthing.com, and they'll have an interactive map of where you can track down people to educate you. And then there's the same thing for doulas and midwives. You can find them just by Google searching, whoever doula or midwife in your area, and they can actually interconnect you with the right obstetricians or whatever physicians you need, OBGs.
The birthing center that I went to, just Oregon Birth and Wellness, shout out, love you guys. But they had the whole package linked together. So if you chose the doula, they would connect you to Eugene's pool of doulas, and it was so easy and so wonderful to have that sort of guidance and wisdom. Just kind of like, here you go. You don't have to struggle to find this information.
Right, right. It shouldn't be difficult.
Yeah. It's natural.
Right.
Mhm.
I had mine all natural too.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
I had Demerol.
What is that?
I think I remember you telling me this story.
It's like, yeah, it was like being high. I don't know. It's like
Yeah.
knocked you out. It wasn't an epidural because they're like, oh, it's too late for that. And I was like, what? I didn't really
What?
like that anyway. My doctor was kind of a hippie back then in the 90s, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, it was intense. It was like I went in for my last checkup and my water broke, and so I was like hanging out for like 24 hours before anything happened. And I remember like my mom came down and she was waiting for me, and she's like, now, Deborah, I know that you're probably going to have some emotions here. And if you need to say any bad words, it's going to be okay. And I was like, great.
Thank you for permission.
Yeah. So like it had been over 24 hours. It had been like 26 hours. And the nurses came in. It was like 2 p.m. The nurses came in and they're like, wow, like you're checking me. And this was like a medical school. So there was like, hey, do you mind if all these students come in? And it's just like, sure, whatever. And then I was like, God, why are there so many people in there?
God.
And so like it's 2 p.m. and my mom's like, so when's this baby coming out? And they're like, yeah, I wasn't dilated very far. I was like a 2 still. And they're like,
Uninvited guests will actually make it shoot
yeah.
back up.
I was like, hey, I'm starting to hurt a little bit. Like these contractions are like kind of painful now. I have a high pain tolerance, so it took a minute for them to like really get to me.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so I'm in pain. My doctor is nowhere to be found at this point. They're like, well, we're trying to track her down. And they're like, my mom's like, when's this baby gonna come out? And the nurse says like, oh, maybe around 7. And I was like, oh. And my mom's like, Deborah. And I said, you said I could. Because I was like 18 at the time too. So I was still like not cussing in front of my mom. But
Language, Deborah.
yeah. I
love the fact that you were being called Deborah.
Yeah, you know, right? Deborah.
We need to be formal at this point.
Always when I'm in trouble. Or embarrassing her.
Oh, God.
That was great.
Okay.
Good times. So everybody's got their story.
Yeah,
Share
they
your
do.
stories below.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
I could read that
Yeah.
all day.
I know, right? That's great. So I want to talk a little bit more about the hypnosis that we did, finding my young one in the forest.
The inner child.
The inner
So it's I think it's Child in the Meadow.
child in the meadow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would we want to do this for the audience?
Ooh, would that be
Is that
better than
possible?
like spoiler alert? Because I don't want to ruin it for people.
Well, you could, but yeah, no. I like to put people far enough under that they can go and recognize it.
Okay.
Mhm.
So sorry if it's spoiler alert, but
Yeah, spoiler alert, but you
story.
know,
It was really great.
yeah, Debbie
So-
knows where to find me. So,
Can you kind of set the scene a little bit? Because I don't really
well,
remember.
basically, you're going down paths into and through a forest and a meadow and all this, and
Right.
then you're going to look into the distance and see a child in a
Right.
meadow who's actually sitting on a rock in a stream, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
And
And
then
so-
you
Okay.
pick up you scoop water and then you create a toy for the child in any
Yeah.
shape or form. When I did it, it was a heart. I literally was giving myself self-love.
Same. That's what mine was. The stuffed heart.
Yeah. And so for some people, exactly right. So it's like, this is what you need. And you don't recognize all the symbolism until, yeah, after the fact. And then it blows your mind and you're going, oh,
Right. And it was
I
like
had
my
no idea.
5-year-old self was just sitting there like, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. And that story was so important to me because it started the unconditional journey. It's probably like right here. Well,
Yeah,
that one,
exactly.
you know?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
and I think then at the end you merge the child into you, into one.
Right.
You absorb the child and you absorb the love or whatever toy you gave them that you felt is absent from you.
Mhm.
And then that absorption helps heal, right?
Mhm.
Helps you move forward because you've now got that extra energy of a child within you.
Yeah.
So it's got multiple levels.
Out of curiosity, would you say like whatever age you see the child as, would that be in correlation to your first trauma or just like whatever's bubbled up that day?
The child in general is just a child. It
Yeah.
can be anytime, anywhere. I've never tried to associate it with any, again, because I don't try to analyze you for you. You have to do it for yourself. But in listening to Debbie's stories, then I'm going, "Oh, yeah, I could have told you that." A
Right.
lot of times, you don't necessarily share the story. You just say, I was there and I want to move on, or I don't want to go any further. So sometimes if you're doing regression, you could be going over a bridge, you could be going up to several doors, different colored doors. And they'll tell me what color the doors are. They'll tell me if they're on a bridge. They'll tell me they can't get across the bridge. They'll tell me they want to go back. So I know that there's enough trauma there that it's too soon. So, you know, everybody in their own time, literally.
Yeah, mine was the 5-year-old, and that was the time of my trauma. So I've always just like correlated it with that. But the one message that I took with me from that is that you were like, go up to them and see if they want to give you a hug and tell her that you love her and that you're safe now and all of this stuff. And so remembering all of those things going forward, as I started doing other healing and like other past life work, soul retrieval, like I had this amazing soul retrieval experience, which I hope to get to in another episode. But when I found the soul piece, someone pointed it out to me in another journey, and I used those skills to see that soul piece and say, hey, I love you. Do you need a hug? Do you want a hug? And that soul piece just was like, I said, you're safe now. And
Mhm.
that soul piece just went right back into me and said, yeah. And that filled like a massive hole inside my soul. Because in the soul, I've learned that you have these pieces of trauma where soul pieces get taken out and left in certain places. And that was a past life, right? So that's another thing. It's like a life ago or many lives ago, that was a
Mhm.
massive trauma. And I went and found that piece, and now it's back here. And it's so healing to have that piece back. I just remember feeling like a massive connected piece came back to me. And so I use that now, and it's super helpful. I don't know. It's just magical. Like all
Yeah,
you
I'm
gotta do
just
is
glad
love
you kept it
yourself.
with you.
You're right. Yeah.
She's whole.
I'm
It's awesome.
still working, but yeah, that was a big piece.
Well, we're all a work in progress,
Yeah.
so that doesn't change.
Sorry about my whiny cat. He wants into somebody's room. Tiny, little tiny whiny. Anyway, I think that one other thing that I took from our working together was, shoot, now I'm gonna forget what it is. Every day.
Every day in every way, I get better and better.
Yes.
And you do it 10 times on your fingers.
Oh, that's
And
right.
sometimes it's just saying before you go to bed, I love you,
I love
and
you.
give yourself a self hug. And as you go to sleep and when you wake up in the morning, you're reinforcing a positivity within yourself that you're lovable, you're capable, and you can do more. So,
Awesome. Every day, in every way, I'm doing better and better. Is that right?
and it could be just brushing your teeth more thoroughly. It just doesn't matter. It's small things. And if you find that you're improving in any way, shape, or form, it helps you. So that's
Kind of like
helps you
making
to
your
help
bed in the
others.
morning is like the start of making progress in the day.
Mhm.
It's your mantra for the day, the night, whatever. Typically, you do it right before you go to bed at night, and you just pinch your fingers each time to make sure you do it 10 times. So it's like tapping.
Cool.
It's one of those magical little gems I learned from you that I've kept with me all these years.
Well, and it goes back to self-hypnosis. That's the first stage of it. And it's really important that everybody knows how to do that, because there's going to be instances where you just got to tone out. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to go and get a little toe surgery the other day, and the guy is like, okay, this is going to hurt. And I said, well, I have a high tolerance. And he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So he's halfway through this little toe surgery thing, and he's like, I'm really impressed. You don't seem to have any response, especially when I stuck that needle in you. I go, I'm a hypnotherapist. I think I told you. I don't. And he's like, okay. And it's the same with nurses. When I had a double mastectomy after my cancer, they came in with pain meds, and they're like, what? How much medication would you like? And I go, I don't need any. I don't feel anything. And they're just like, excuse me? And so they kept coming in every hour asking me to take drugs. And I said, I don't need them. And so it kind of switches nurses and doctors when they find out that they don't need to be selling you on these drugs, that some people actually have the ability to block.
Yeah.
So, and it goes with childbirth, goes with, and when I donate blood, I'm always visualizing a river, so I get done faster. It's like,
That's awesome.
Nice.
I time myself, so I know it's working. So,
Yeah.
Whoa.
I find it like back to the high pain tolerance and the magic of childbirth, that it's the craziest and can be excruciating pain that a woman could probably ever experience. And at the moment it's over, you forget about it. And I'm just like, that's nature's way of saying, like, you can do this again. You can do
well, you
what?
can just go on YouTube and look up hypnobirths, and they're just fabulous. I mean, it's just these people, it could be their first, their second, their third child, it doesn't matter. These babies start marching out. It's just like, and they're going, oh, wait, what?
Yeah.
And you can feel the head, what? So yeah, it's
Like those people that wait until the last second and they don't know, and then they're like, all of a sudden it's coming, and then they're like in the car having a baby. Like they're not
or
forcing
the
it out.
parking
It's
lot,
just
or
ready.
in the
Yeah, wherever.
kitchen. Yeah. And it doesn't hurt them to be born there. I mean, you're better off leaving the umbilical cord attached and pulsating till it's really done. So it serves a purpose till it doesn't, and it tells you when it's done. The blood's gone, it's white. So,
Yeah.
but a lot of people are in a hurry for all of that, and that's usually in a hospital. So,
Mhm.
you have to believe in your body's ability. I mean, we've been birthing babies for millions of years. It's not like something's new here.
Yeah.
Right.
The idea of rushing anything and everything is the problem.
I've heard once that the placenta will actually keep pushing nutrients into the baby until the mom picks up the child, just in case they
It
get
needs to keep
rejected in the
working.
wild or something like that.
Interesting.
Really fascinating. Such a powerful thing. I love it.
Women are
Yeah,
amazing.
and there's placental encapsulation for that reason too, that there's still nutrients in the placenta even after it's done being used. Those are nutrients that the baby was using for months, and so it's used as a preventative for baby blues for the mother, because it eases her off of not supplementing directly to the baby.
That is so cool.
Yeah, so they freeze it right after the baby's born if you ask them to, and then somebody comes and does the encapsulation. I know there was somebody in Vancouver back in the day that did it. And so, yeah.
Exciting. I could talk about that for
Yeah.
days. Like placenta mapping. Have you heard of that?
No. What's
Like,
that?
there's some doulas will actually work with you where they unfold the placenta and it has the story of your pregnancy, like hard times, like what it had to give extra to the child, and
Like reading tea leaves kind of thing. Damn.
Well, if you've ever seen a placenta, it actually looks like a tree.
A tree. Oh, the tree of life.
Yeah,
Mm.
so you've got all these vessels going in different directions, and there's a major trunk that goes through it as the major source of nutrition, and then it'll expand outward. And if there's any trauma along the way, that's what she's saying, is that you can detect that because there might be a kink in one of the branches, or,
Wow.
yeah,
Interesting. Magic of
it's another
life.
story. Yeah, well, it's the tree of life, literally.
Right. Magic.
So, yep.
Wow.
Well,
Well, anything else we want to talk
any
about
little
today?
gems that you'd like to give our audience?
Oh my gosh. Just to, keep doing the self-discovery stuff. It's like you're doing, I mean, it's really important that you don't stop learning.
Yeah,
And
Absolutely.
that's not externally, but internally. And I
Mhm.
think it's really important that people understand that you might change, others change, but you can also grow together.
beautiful.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you, Nancy. It's been
Yeah.
an
Yes,
honor
you're
to
welcome.
you and hear
Yeah.
your wisdom.
So good
No
to see your
problem.
face again. It's been so
I
long.
know. Well, now that we know how much to do with the Zooming, we can do it again another
Okay.
time.
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Right on.
Looking forward to it.
Love you so much.
All right,
Thanks for
guys.
being with us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll put some links down there, and I'll
Send them
you.
over. I'll send them out. Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. Thank you.
Perfect.
And all you unconditional loves, we love you. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next
You're
time.
welcome.
Happy New
Have a
Year.
good year. You
Yes,
too.
you too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
We ask our listening community to help us reinforce the energy shield of our intention, to reach out wider and brighter. Love energy is important to share. We ask you to bring light, love, and grace into the world. Please help us share this message, whether verbally or energetically.